You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music can mean only one thing. It is time for the 1001st episode of the Option Block, what the cool kids are calling the OB. What do they call the OB1K. That was the Option Block 1000th episode. My name is Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as, of course, from the aforementioned network. Hope all of you enjoy. Looks like a lot of you did enjoy the big, the mega, the epic 1000th episode. It's still hard for me to say that out loud with a straight face. It just sounds so ridiculous of a number. 1000 episodes. I'm hard pressed to think of many other things out there that have done 1,000 of pretty much anything. So it's a lot. 10 plus years of the Option Block. Glad so many of you enjoyed it. Glad so many of you are enjoying and interested in all the fun going on Options Insider Plus and Options Insider Pro. Really is kind of the first new wrinkle to the network in quite some time. So it's kind of fun. It's exciting. We're excited about it. I know you guys are, but we're excited about it too, because we have ideas of where it's going to go, but we really don't know. So that's kind of the fun, right? We're going to let it grow together, see what shows we're going to come up with, what makes sense. What do you guys want from the content, how it's going to grow, how it's going to evolve. It's fun. It's a more exciting way. It's more ways for you guys to engage directly with us, which is something I know most of you have been asking for a long time. So we're really happy. If you haven't checked it out, I know a lot of you have. I know it went down briefly during the big spectacular, so hopefully you weren't one of the folks that was impacted by it. But it is up and working now. I can testify at theoptionsinsider.com/shop is the place to go. You'll see all the breakdown for both of them, what they mean, what's going on. We have all those cool, fun prizes, tchotchkes. Remember, you get in there early. You get all the fun network founder stuff, including the cool gear being designed by those crazy devils over there at Pro Wrestling Tees. So look forward to that. All sorts of fun stuff. Unfortunately, the epic spectacular was too much for Uncle Mike. I worked him too hard this week. I made him talk for 3+ hours on Monday, listeners. So he couldn't make it today. I broke him. I broke Uncle Mike. If you're wondering what it takes to break Uncle Mike, that's it. Make him talk for 3 hours and he's done. So he needs to recover today. So we'll have a mix up, a little bit of a fun panel today. First off, going out to the hinterlands. He ducked out early, and that probably saved his voice. He only talked for about 2 hours. He is the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the program. How's your voice? How's your sanity after the epic Option Block 1000 episode spectacular?
I had to say I was a little touched being part of the 1000 show spectacular. I feel like I've been here. I know I haven't been here the entire way, but I've been here a good chunk.
A good chunk of it. What do we say it was? Episode like 84 or something was your first appearance?
Not bad.
It's a pretty good run, sir. It's over 900 episodes. That should get you at least a seat at the table.
It's something, right? Like something that might get me a martini or something when we all get back together again. Although actually we'll make Sebastian buy us all something. But
yeah,
anyway,
the martinis and food taste better when Sebastian is buying them, definitely.
I'll tell you, that is the best steak in the world, by the way. You find me a better steak than the one that Sebastian
I have
buys.
tweeted that. The steak that Mark Sebastian buys you is the most delicious steak in the world. Yes.
You should, because it's very true.
All right. And also joining us, ably diving into the fray. He's refreshed. He's rested. We didn't drag him through the gauntlet. That was OB1K. He is none other than your regular host of Options Playbook Radio, what the cool kids call OPR, doing double duty this week. Joining us here on the old Option Block All-Star panel, none other than Mr. Brian Overby, a.k.a. the senior options analyst over there at Ally Invest, a.k.a. the options guy. Mr. Options Guy, welcome back to Option Block, sir. It has been too long.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I always love to be able to join in. 1001, baby. That's got my name on it.
There you go. Right. Putting your stamp. These next 1,000 episodes, all about Brian Overby. You're going to take over. It's the Overby takeover.
You can't do the next 1,000 unless you do 1001 first.
There you go. Journey of 1,000 miles, 1,000 steps, or 1,000 episodes begins with episode 1 as we dive right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody. Let's get into it. Let's get into what is lighting up our screens. Of course, we have done this now. This is the 1,001st time we have done the trading block. So hopefully you know what it is by now. But of course, this is the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what's going on in today's markets, and what's lighting up our screens. A lot of green again on the screen, even though perhaps not as much green as we have seen earlier. They have to take a break eventually. You know, S&P just passing 4,200 again, up about 0.25% on the day. NASDAQ, also up about 0.25% on the day. Dow actually the leader today, up about 0.33%. All of this green means our vol friends continuing to take a break this week after they got a little bit juicy, a little bit frothy towards the middle portion of last week. VIX coming into showtime is at about 16.75. So we're in a 16 handle again. I know we threatened it a few times and seemed like we glimpsed it a few times, but now we're there. 16.75, down about 2 points exactly from the epic 1,000th episode spectacular on Monday. It seems like we're pretty far away from that 25-13 level we hit, about a week ago. Not quite 10 points, but a lot of vol has been wrung out of that sponge over the course of the past week. VVIX down to about right at the triple digits level, right around 103 coming into showtime. Puts it down about 15 points from our last show. And again, down almost 40 points from where it hit in the middle of the turbulence of last week. VXX, of course, the product that can't seem to get out of its own way to the downside, 34.5 right now. That's down 3 points from our last show and down pretty much exactly 10 points from the high it hit last week. So just crazy town out there from a vol erosion perspective. Of course, factor into that, we do have a long weekend coming up this weekend. So seems like traders may be getting a little bit ahead of it this week, taking that weekend out a little bit early, a day or so early, as they are wont to do. They want to get the heck out of Dodge. They don't want to be caught holding the bag going into the weekend, right? So they're just getting the heck out of Dodge. They're marking down that weekend now. So get in there while the getting is good. So if you're wondering why all this vol is getting smacked, that probably has a little bit to do with it. Vol Q, a.k.a. the at-the-money vol of the NASDAQ 100 at about 18.5, puts it down about 0.75 point from where it was at the Monday show, I should say, and about looks like about 7 points down from the high it hit last week as well. So a lot to unpack. We got crypto also back in the green finally after selling off hard over the latter portion of last week and over the weekend. So a lot to unpack. Mr. Options Guy, we will start with you. You haven't been on with us on the panel in a while. What's lighting up your tape and the tape of the folks over there at Ally today and indeed this week, sir?
Well, of course, you got the second iteration. Well, I don't know if it's the second, maybe the fifth iteration of GameStop and all of the Reddit stocks rocking and rolling. There's always an interest in them, no matter if you're playing or if you're not, because they've just been crazy insane. And that another round of short squeezes. The shorts keep thinking it's easy pickings, and they keep correcting their thought process via the Reddit chats and the buying power that they seem to have and continue to have. But another just little thing that we've seen, we get a lot of interest in the cryptos. We don't trade them directly at Ally, but Coinbase, after earnings, interesting, their earnings come out and the stock basically goes nowhere, but now we're finally seeing some upside. I guess they've determined that as far as Coinbase is concerned, that it really is a cryptocurrency and it only goes up when the currencies go up and it seems to go down when the currencies go down. It has nothing to do with earnings and the fact that they're an exchange, but that's kind of been an interesting one. We've seen some heavy volume in those areas. And in general, the FANG stocks are back in play. More interest in them. They're kind of edging their way a little bit higher overall. So seeing a little bit of activity in those underlying stocks too, which I think is good in general. But that basically kind of sums up what's on the radar with our clients nowadays.
I noticed you have been diving a little further afield into some of those names as well. You did coin recently on OPR. I do believe you got some NVIDIA fund coming up. So it seems like the meme stocks and some of these hot names also been driving a little bit of OPR action of late, Brian.
That is true, without a doubt. And yeah, we did NVIDIA this week. NVIDIA didn't really have, it was a very interesting play overall in that it just had the big run up. It got blindsided by the 4-for-1 stock split that's going to be happening. So I think they took this earnings report as a chance to kind of take a little bit of profits off the table. So we did something that would protect ourselves if the market went down too when we did that trade.
If you missed those, if somehow you've been missing OPR, you know where to find it. Subscribe to the full network. If you're not listening, I said it before, if you're not listening to the full network, I know some of you like to come in and snipe certain shows that you like. That's fine. But if you're not listening to the full network, you're missing out on stuff like Brian doing all the fun OPR goodness there. So get the full network. Of course, you can always just go to subscribe to Options Playbook Radio, wherever the heck you get our stuff. Pretty much inescapable now on the audio side. It's even on Audible now, for God's sakes. You can get your latest version of the Audible book for Moby Dick and then get OPR back to back. So the classic literature and a little bit of Brian in your life. You know, nothing classic literature about our next co-host here, but he's more of he does like a good dark and stormy night because he does live on the shore of Maine. So maybe we'll go with that. Mr. Rock Lobster. You know how to paint this picture of Maine as just this horrific place where angels fear to tread, sir? Let's lighten up your tape, sir, before I continue to just besmirch the land of Maine.
Well, you know what? If I didn't come on the show and you didn't besmirch the land of Maine, what kind of show would we have? Would it be half as interesting to our listeners?
Would we ever have made it all the way to OB1K, I ask you? Probably not.
I don't think so. I think the umbrage and besmirching is part of the charm of the whole entire program. What I'm looking at is old is new again is the theme. So we do have like this thing we email out. Like one of my guys working with me, Option Pit now, he's kind of a Washington insider guy, knows a lot about kind of how Washington works and stuff. So he's looking at like stocks like Ford and GE, like they have these kind of green areas, but they're not valued like green companies, right? So Ford has a very conservative, right? Because it's an automotive maker and nobody it's never going to make any money. And it's breaking out like to a recent high, like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year highs, whatever. Because they're, hey, the F-150 is going to be an EV truck. Right. And Ford probably makes can put out more EV trucks out of one plant than Tesla can make all year, and we don't even have to get into the differences in dollars, but Tesla's worth roughly 10 times what Ford is. So, and I'm sure Tesla's very sexy and all that. And also like GE, another day breaking out, they make two things that the world's going to want soon, windmills and airplane engines, because people are going to start flying again. So like those are two, like what I would just say, like old economy, come on, like those stocks are starting to really kind of pop again, which makes things super, super, super interesting. Anyway, that's those are the things that are kind of light on the tape. So those are two positions I've had for a little while, and they're just kicking butt. So I'm still like them. So it's just a question of being long enough and just forgetting about it at this point. And I think that's sort of where I am with them. They're going to go from a trade to an investment. Maybe we'll see if maybe that'll put the dagger in the hearts of those names. But I don't think so. I think there's a little bit of room to run on these as they get, a little bit more of a valuation. But I mean, every green company on the planet doesn't make money. Like most of them don't make any money. And these are established businesses that are moving into the green, which is a new, great top line area for them to grow. So I think this is, this is a great opportunity, for these names right now. So that's what I'm looking at, to be honest. And I am looking at VIX going much lower. This is about the area where we bounce like a rubber biscuit. I did close some puts today, and I own a lot of upside for about nothing now. So actually for almost a little credit. So I think the big thing too is it seems like, so now the Republicans are like, okay, we'll spend $1 trillion or almost $1 trillion on infrastructure. And Biden wants to spend now. So you have a market now. So all of a sudden there's some sort of agreement in Congress, and not an agreement, I would say there's a tunnel now, a window of opportunity. But those, like right now, the market is responding bullish. So I don't think any of that is unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination. So, like I say, these old school companies, old line companies that have these little green components, like this could be some real growth for these companies. So just ride the wave, baby. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you may not be alone in that optimism there on Ford. Stay tuned for the odd blocks. It seems like someone may even be more optimistic than you, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's first break down what's lighting up our tape out here today. Let's start in the land of the major indices. VIX putting up some numbers. Like we said, for a while, it was struggling around that 500,000 level and the ADV level, starting to get north of that now. It's about 572 coming into today's show. So actually threatening 600K, which is a nice little lift out there. And already nearly 500,000, nearly 500,000 contracts on the tape already in VIX land today. 480,000. That's more paper we've seen this early in the show than quite some time out there in VIX land. So VIX lighting it up. Again, this crushing probably have something to do with it. Also, the fact that we are going into this long weekend. Folks want to get their stuff off maybe before all the madness is kind of maybe a little bit too late already if you've been waiting. But people always ask us, when do they take the weekends out? And it's always a moving target. But I think you could definitely argue they're starting to take some of that juice out already. SPY closing in on 2 million contracts, 1.8 million right now. The ADV is 4.3 million out there. The S actually looking pretty light right now. And its ADV has ticked up. It's closing in on about 1.3 million now. So that ADV is up about 200,000 contracts from what it was about a month ago, but only about 509,000. Remember, usually the S is kind of reliable. It's usually about 750,000 exactly right about now. So a little bit light today in the S, which is interesting. The Q's, same deal, about 503,000 out there as well. So similar paper in the Q's, the ADV about 1.3 million. So the Q's and the S actually right now looking very similar volume levels today. And the ADV is almost exactly the same as well, which is kind of interesting. IWM also looking actually decently active, about 308,000. That's a little bit north of half of its ADV, which is 557,000. Want a little bit more on all things small cap? Stay tuned a little bit later today. We come back with Twyfel. I'll be joined by my buddy Derek Salmon over there at CME, aka the guy who heads up everything options over there at CME. So we'll get a nice glimpse into what's cooking on the options front over there. Cooling some cool. They've been going on about the C-Vol stuff for a while. They got some more wrinkles to that, which is going to be kind of cool. So if you like Vol, stay tuned for that in a little bit. And let's get out to the most active, the top 10 hot names that you folks are trading in your hot little hands. You know it's pretty active when Palantir's number 10, listeners. That's a good sign that things are popping off today. Also interesting and a good sign when it costs you $222,000 to break into the top 10, which is number 10, which is Palantir. Again, that's pretty robust. Some days we're getting it's $1.50, $1.60. So that's a lot of paper to break into the top 10. Interesting. I think we got some action on the tape today, listeners. Number 9, it's NVDA. Brian's favorite over there at OPR, 238,000 there as well. Number 8, Sundial. Haven't seen them in a while. I know they were trading about 75 cents not too long ago, and then they got up to look like about 91 cents. Actually, this morning, they popped up to 91 cents. It must have just had earnings, and it looks like they're just giving it right back to down to 84 cents again. So, Sundial was lighting it up. I know, good thing the Viceroy isn't on with us today. He's taking his break as well, much deserved from the epic 1,000 episode spectacular, because he would be just appalled that 261,000 contracts have traded on a name that is worth 84 cents right now. Number 7, our friends across the street, Boeing, 327,000 contracts. Number 7, we're already north of 300K. That's a good sign. Number 6, Facebook, 337,000. Number 5, Apple. Wow. Whoa. I can't remember the last time I said that. Number 5, Apple. Maybe a year ago, last summer, who knows? If Apple's not number 1, it's sure as hell usually number 2. Wow. That shows you, listeners, what's going on out there today. It's a wild day. 526,000 contracts. Apple is at roughly half of its usual volume. Why, man? These meme kids are just kicking the crap out of everybody out there. And maybe a few other names that we'll get to in a second. Number 4, the name Mr. Rock Lobster just talking about, GE. Have a nice little lift out there today, 73 cents or about 5.5%, a little bit north of 14 right now. That's good enough for number 4 on our list. And also 655,000 contracts. So GE tearing it up. Number 3. Yes, number 3. Tesla. What? We're at number 3. We've already done Apple and Tesla. I don't know what's going on, listeners. This is the topsy-turvy list today. Tesla, number 3, 745,000 contracts. So we know we got 2 names that are newcomers to the top spots, that are mysteries, that also are doing a hell of a lot of paper because they're kicking the crap out of Tesla and Apple combined today. I don't even see AMD in the top 10 today. It got forced out of the top 10. Palantir's all the way down at number 10. Man, this is crazy. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, number 2, Mr. Rocklops. I think you can get behind this one. Number 2, Ford. Ford doing a stunning 1.25 million contracts right now, as Rock Lobster alluded to. Ford hitting some impressive new levels, $14.65. I remember, didn't seem like that long ago when it was trading on $4 or $5, and I was reading all these epic treatises about how it was a value trap at $5 and stay away from Ford. This thing can't get out of its own way, can't make any money, and here we are. Nearly 3x that, $14.65. This is an impressive new level, new high out here. Usually Ford, for the better part of the last decade, has languished somewhere in the single digits. Maybe it broke through to like 12 or so, 13, but usually not this high. That's for sure. And it actually got as high, looks like it's 15.05 earlier. So yeah, that's a nice pop for Ford, and also a nice amount of paper out here. If you like Ford, stay tuned. Like I said, a little bit more to come from them in a bit. All right, and then number 1. Can you guess what the number 1 what could possibly trump Apple and Tesla and this resurgent Ford, listeners? What could do it? Well, got to go out to the meme kiddies. And holy crap, I haven't looked at it in about a day. AMC. Now I see why. Almost $25, $24.57. Good grief. These anti-squeeze kids are on the rampage today, up $5, 25%. And that's good for 1.43. It was just $13 a few sessions ago, and before that it was shy of 10. Goodness gracious, AMD. This is another one where I had some fun back not too long ago doing some fun verticals, because these kids bid up all the verticals for me. It was very nice of them. I haven't put on any recently. I'm regretting that now. This is the nice pop. 1.43 million contracts here in AM. Jeez. Wow. I don't know what else to say about that. Wow. Of course, a lot of this action also driven by earnings. You know where to find all the latest data in your hot little hands. TheOptionsInsider.com. Options, news, and articles. Bam. You're off to the races. Earnings move results, and earnings season reports. We've got Tuesday, Intuit and Nordstrom. Wednesday, we had Dick's Sporting Goods, NVIDIA, the aforementioned NVIDIA, and Snowflake, the hot name everybody loved for like a minute. And then now everyone seems to be, they're moving on to AMC. Thursday, we have Best Buy, Dollar General. Best Buy kicking the crap out of it. That surprised me. They said they couldn't move enough. They couldn't sell enough stuff. They couldn't keep enough stock. So Best Buy, the pandemic apparently was good for them. I guess you got to buy your webcams and your laptops and everything else. So good numbers for Best Buy. Dollar General, Dollar Tree. Uncle Mike going to be sad. He missed his two favorites there. Medtronic, Salesforce, Costco, HP, Dell. Tomorrow we got Big Lots. We got some new move results and new season reports from Matt and the folks at Oratz, hot off the presses right before the show. Listeners, again, you guys should be able to find them. If they're not live right now, they'll be live shortly over there on the website. Let's hit a couple of these for you. NVIDIA, first off, they were after the bell on the 26th. They went into their announcement 628 even. They were pricing in 4%, and they delivered a whopping, get this, listeners, 0.4%. Wow, that's pretty much earnings in the pandemic era in a nutshell. Looks like it hasn't even really moved much since. It's still at about that level, 625 and around a half. So even a session or so later, hasn't moved. So there you go. No juice. And NVIDIA, that's a name that's almost synonymous with vol these days, and not so much right now. Snowflake, they were after the bell yesterday as well, 235 and a quarter. They were pricing in 7.5%, listeners, and they delivered 1%. This is one Matt and I were talking about on the advisor's option. Don't have a lot of history for this one, really only a cycle or two. But it seemed like they were pricing in a lot of juice. Was it warranted? We didn't know because we have no history. And it turns out the answer is a resounding no. This is just earnings in a pandemic in a nutshell. If you wanted to see why we've been saying don't buy this vol, here we go. Dollar General, about $200 almost exactly. They were pricing in 4.1%. They delivered 2.5%. Here's an outperformance. We had Dollar Tree. They were at 108.5 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 5.2%. They delivered 7.7%. So one name here had the temerity to outperform. And that's really about it. If you want more of that data, listeners, to go theoptionsinsider.com, options, news, and articles tab. Bam! Then you're off to the races. Let's check out the season. The season has actually drifted lower, listeners. It was holding firm at around 75%. Now coming into today's show with these latest numbers, it's down to 73%. And so far, this latest week is not looking good, 65%. So again, this past week, if you bought vol, you got 65 cents back on your dollar. And on the season as a whole, you've averaged out to about 73 cents on the dollar. So not exactly a home run for the vol buyers. If you want to look, let's see after the bell really quickly. Maybe someone can surprise us here. We got Costco after the bell. 385.62. They were pricing in 838. In the past, they moved 885. So I guess someone got the memo over there at Costco. Don't price in too much juice. Dell, almost $100 exactly. They were pricing in 478. In the past, they've moved 357. So little extra vol in Dell. If past is prologue, that will get annihilated. Big Lots, 65, 67. They're pricing in 566. In the past, they moved 679. So clearly, they got the memo out there in Big Lots. Again, all that stuff, earnings move results, and earnings season, all available. TheOptionsInsider.com. Now it's time for us to keep on rolling. Time to get weird. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right. Let's do it, listeners. You know what the Odd Block is. It's time to get weird, time to get wild. We've done it 1,000 times now. In fact, the Rock Lobster had to leave on our big 1,000 episode spectacular right before we got to the Odd Block segment. So I was left to my own devices to ruminate and think back on the 1,000 times that we had profiled weird, unusual, and aberrant activity in the world of options. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, I gave my thoughts on Monday about some of the trades and just things we highlighted over the years that still stand out with me to this day. But I would like to offer you the same opportunity, sir. So if, as you look back on the odd blocks from episode 84 and beyond. What trades, what trends, what sticks out to you, sir, over that time?
You know what's funny? The first thing I just saw your show notes, but the first thing that came to mind before the show notes was the Men's Warehouse.
Yep, exactly. That's the one I mentioned on Monday too. How can it not, right? We mocked this thing to hell and high heaven, and it mocked us right back.
I think that was by far our the biggest. When you trade, you're going to be wrong. I don't think you and I have both been just so run over by a brick freight train as we were on that one. What's funny is it's 6 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, for Brian and for everybody who missed it, I kind of ran it down really quickly on Monday. I'll do a quick synopsis here again. Back in October of 2015, we profiled someone, seemed like they were reaching a little bit for some D's 41 calls, about 20,000 of them. They paid $1.65 in Men's Warehouse when the stock was 38.5. So they had a little bit of time. This was end of October. They had about a month and change, really coming on 2 months here for these calls, but it seemed like they were reaching. And what really outraged us, and I know the Rock Lobster, is they did it delta neutrals. They sold about 750,000 shares against these calls, and we said, "What the hell are you doing that for?" That just really killed all of our enthusiasm for it. And Mr. Rock Lobster, hilarity ensued, right?
It did. We no way this makes money, because we're like, Men's Warehouse, where's that stock ever gonna go? We were poo-pooing this backspread. We both just shellacked it. And then, surprise, surprise, Mr. Longo, what happened to that stock?
It got the crap beat out of it. Listeners, if you're doing a trade delta neutral, that means you really need a big pop. You want some vol to happen in this name. And we thought that's an absurd name to do it in, Men's Warehouse. And this guy proved us both wrong, because the stock sold off hard, got down to the low 20s. He closed it. He didn't even wait till December. He closed it on November 19th. That's how much this trade worked in his favor, listener. He took the calls off for, I think, 2 cents. You might say, oh, he lost a bunch of money. And he did. He lost right around 3.3 million on the calls. But then he made about 12.5 million on the stock. He added in a few other things. It was close to 10 million this guy made on this trade here, listeners. So Mr. Rock Lobster, we mocked it, but he seems like he earned his stripes in the end, and he's laughing all the way to the bank here 6 years later.
He is, yes. He bought a nice third world country with his ill-gotten gains, and he's on his way. So still, I would say that is the biggest miss for us, for sure, 100%. And it always now makes my ears tickle whenever we see another one, right? But I think the biggest wins we have seen, strangely enough, has been the line in the sand put. Probably not the average trade for the listeners, and I think we might even be showcasing another one, but when that size goes down and they blast out those junk puts, they have been, I think our listeners don't necessarily need it as they got to go sell the puts, but they've been incredibly good over the years as far as a strategy goes for, if you want to take delivery of a stock at a lower price, and as long as you can stomach the fact that you're actually going to do it, it's a good strategy. So I do it all the time. But I know I'm going to probably take delivery of the stock. So, but I think as a strategy, as the 1000 show spectacular, that's something that we have noticed works fairly well. When they come in, they just move in with this huge size and sell those puts.
All right, let's see if we can get some of those for today. But it is funny, you and I both had the same thoughts about what resonated for us over. I also mentioned something we actually did this year recently, the Denison Mines one, where someone traded nearly 250,000 of those 2.5 calls on a $1 stock for 35 cents. And they were about less than a month to go. Those were insane. I don't piggyback on a lot of these. I faded that one hard, listeners, and it was great because I think they got up to about 35 cents briefly, and that bid vanished within a session or two. The market realized this was an absurd level for these. So you could got all that for you in about, a couple of sessions. So very rarely do they work out that quickly, but that was a fun one as well. Just for the size, the ridiculousness of it, and the fact that hopefully some of our listeners got some value out of that one as well. Speaking of value, I said people called it a value trap back when it was $4 or $5, Mr. Rock Lobster. What are they saying now? at 1466. Yes, I'm talking about Ford. I won't regale you with the sordid history of this thing to say a year ago it was trading 571. So this is probably back when I was reading about the value trap days. And then it's pretty much been not straight up because it's had some fits and starts, but pretty much net positive over the course of the past year, listeners. Big run here for Ford. And Mr. Rockloff, you said you're optimistic. You like it. You become a long-term holder. You're, dare I say it, a holdler of Ford out here. Well, someone's going to say, hold my beer. I see you to that punch, and I raise you, because we got someone coming in today getting a little ahead of his skis on this one. We'll see. Perhaps a bridge too far. I like a good Ford as much as the next guy. I don't know if I can get on board with this. He got someone picking up nearly 19,874 of the June 18s. 1-8. And he paid through the offer to get them. They were offered at 20 cents. He says, nay, I shall pay 21 cents for my 20,000. Thank you very much, sir. It's worth pointing out, no, actually the earnings are after this. I thought the earnings were in this, but earnings are after this cycle. So he's not even getting any earnings pop for this. Earnings are on July 29th. So he's just straight up swinging for the fences. So apparently, maybe some of the meme kids are flocking in. They got together. They bought 20,000 of this. Either way, Mr. Rockwell, this seems like the kind of paper we would see in an AMC or a bunch of these other crazy names. Let's see. What's the vol? This is a 70, almost a 71 vol in Ford. I love it. I love it. It brings a smile to my face. Mr. Rock Lobster, what do you have to say for this fellow or lady who is clearly even more bullish on Ford than you, sir?
that qualifies as bullish like crazy. So the paper, this is always what I love. Just the paper in the June ordinary cycle alone, the calls, it was more than when I first started trading. The whole floor would trade all day, the whole floor, and you already trade more volume in one term, in one slice of like 4 series. It just blows my mind. Yes, 70 vol in Ford on the upside. Huge, totally impressive, and 23,000, 37,000 of the 17s. Just a crazy, crazy, crazy amount of paper. This is how crazy I was. I was long as strangle, right? And yesterday we were talking about it in our class, and I'm like, well, I really, like in my gut, I'm like risk reversal, right? Because like the 14.5, 13 risk reversal setting up for even money. And today it'd be worth, let's see, 13.5, so it'd be worth 50 cents. So you're in for nothing and you're out for 50 cents. And I got a little grumpy at myself. So I sold the calls, took the profit on the calls, because I bought a straddle instead. So I still have these 13 puts just sitting there doing nothing. So I go, screw it. I'm going to buy, I'll extend my term a little bit. And I bought some calls and sold some puts that I put on a risk reversal anyway. So I ended up doing what I wanted. But now that I have the puts for credit, I'll just use them and roll into a risk reversal and see if I get a little more gas out of it. So I want this person to be right. So the good thing about a risk reversal is if it settles in between, you never have to do anything, and you only have to really do something if it closes higher to take some profits on the calls. And I have to say, I'll start taking, I can't even believe this, but I'll start taking delivery of Ford at $14, whatever. I know it's crazy. But I am stopped out at 13, so I'm not being that brave. Anyway, that's I don't know if I would want to buy the 17s. I think just buying like the 14.5s or 15s seems pretty cheap enough option wise. I am interested to see if the market does really get a liking to some of these. I just think the values could be changed a little bit. You only need a little bit more of a multiple for some of these companies, because right now they're basically single-digit P/E, like they're never going to grow. So, like the fact that it's even possible for them to grow, pretty easy to get these stocks up 10 or 15% without too much trouble. So I don't think it actually is crazy as it sounds. It's market. I think they actually have a shot at making money on these calls, but I just want them to make money because then I'll make a lot of money.
You're on board with these 18s, really interesting.
I wouldn't buy the 18s myself, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility right now. As statistically insane as that sounds.
Yeah, I guess before today's move, I would have said you were an insane person, but today's move does add a little bit of extra clarity perhaps to this, and we are trading at a 70 vol, so all things are crazy time. What do you guys think, listeners? Would you pay 21 cents? It doesn't have to be 20,000 times. Would you pay 21 cents 10 times for the 18s going out next month in Ford, listeners? You got only really a few weeks for these bad boys to hit 18. That's crazy, Tom. Brian, I got to get your thoughts on this. Ford has kind of transformed itself recently, kind of all of a sudden coming out there with the F-150 Lightning, diving in to all the electric hype out there. And it seems like some of the folks who are out there slinging themselves a little AMC and game, or maybe getting a little hot under the collar for Ford as well, including someone gobbling up these 18s. What kind of action are you seeing out there in Ford over there at Ally these days? Are you seeing folks starting to flood into it on your platform as well? And then B, what are your thoughts on these calls? Are you with me, maybe a little bit of a bridge too far? Or are you like the Rock Lobster, maybe, and talking up your book a bit, saying they're going to make it?
Well, I'm surprised it's taken so long for Ford just to be noticed. They've made some moves. And I talked about them actually on OPR about 8 weeks or so ago. We talked about, well, why won't we sell some puts in Ford? You really wouldn't mind buying it at these levels?
Yeah, didn't you sell the 12 put?
Yeah, you're right on that. I'm glad that you're...
I do listen to the show, and that also seems so far away now, doesn't it? The 12 strike.
Right, and I do believe that you got put on it, too. And we sold that as a good thing on the show, said you would want to do it cash secured. And we did talk about the moves that they've made in the EV space. So it's just kind of all of a sudden somebody woke up. I don't know. I mean, who was the magic person that had to say that Ford is going to be in EVs, going forward, to make the stock pop? Because all of a sudden, overnight, it just starts to move. And Ford has always been an interesting stock, just in that it's such a solid company that's trading around $10, $11, which has always been interesting to me, is that you can go on out and buy some leaps, and there's decent volume in the leap option contracts, and just pay a couple of bucks and buy, some 60, 70 Delta leaps and get an underline, or get a stock like Ford and literally limit your risk to a couple of bucks on it. Like, it was, to me, Ford has been a very good long-term FOMO type trade, and I would be selling some of this volatility in the near term. So right now, I think it's a great covered call play just to sell some of it. And bottom line is, if it gets called away, you're obviously going to, almost anybody that owns it at this point in time would be profitable, because it took a long time to break above the 12/13 level. And now people thinking of it hitting 17 is just, to me, it's just wonderful. Because one of the things that Ford did during the pandemic and that is they actually made respirators. Does anybody remember that? They actually went out and opened a couple of their factories and actually tried to pitch in during the pandemic and actually tried to do some good for the world overall. And at that point in time, you see Tesla was out there fighting people overall to open up their offices, saying they're going to move everything to Texas. But Ford just not getting a lot of love back then overall. So I love seeing it. I would sell some of this premium right now, just because you're right. It's too inflated for a stock like Ford. But then again, it's made to move. So the implied volatility is actually just following along with the actual volatility in the underlying stock. But I just don't think it's one of those stocks that like Tesla or some of the other companies that can go up 400% over time. But there's really no reason why it shouldn't be considered in that realm, except for the fact that it's Ford. So I wonder if they changed their name to something a little bit more fancy to see what would happen in the underlying stock and open, like maybe they should sell off their EV arm and see what happens.
I was just going to say that they should spin off the EV arm, call it Lightning. That thing would be trading at 10x the multiple of Ford within a month. That should totally do that.
Call it a tech company.
And look at Neo and all this nonsense. That's true. I mean, come on, get the Ford Lightning thing. They actually could sell some product, which is, the Lightning F-150 pickup. Bam, you're off to the races. Listen, I agree with Brian. If you're holding some Ford, this guy, you should be thanking this guy because he made a nice and tasty covered call. He'll let you sell a 70 vol, almost a 71 vol, going out in a few weeks in Ford. You'll dump your Ford at the 1821 level and buy it back probably lower there. So yeah, if you got you're sitting on some Ford, you're looking for some covered call opportunities, you probably should be thanking our friend here. We'll come back to this one though. We'll see. Maybe the Rock Lobster's optimism is warranted. We're going to come back to this one to be watched here. That's a tasty covered call in any regard out there. Let's go back now really quickly. Mr. Rock Lobster, you're talking about your favorite trend of these past 1,000 episodes out here in odd block territory. That is, of course, the dominance of the line in the sand puts. Let's see if that continues. Let's review a trade we talked about not too long ago, just May 10th. It was a line in the sand put that someone wrote in Bloom Energy Court, ticker symbol BE. I can't tell you where they're trading because that's a bit of a spoiler. But at the time, we profiled the May 18 puts going up 15,160 times on the bid for 20 cents. This was an 80 vol exactly. The market was 20 cents at 30. So it was good enough to do 15,000 on that bid. So the market took them down. The stock was not quite 21. It was $20.83. So they weren't that close to the money, but they weren't that far away. There was a decent little line in the sand. There were no earnings in this. The earnings are in July. So this was just a straight up kind of near term line in the sand. And of course, expiration has happened now. We can look back on these bad boys, see how they performed. And the stock ended up closing at $22.29 on expiration. So it looks like our friend here did all right because these were still open at expiration. They went out worthless. Mr. Rock Lobster kind of rinse and repeat yet again. The line in the sand puts performs. This time, this guy made about $300,000 over the span of, pretty much 11 days here. Not bad, sir. What do you call that? The old girlfriend's Ferrari? Let's make it egalitarian. It could be a boyfriend's Ferrari too, right?
Yes, we will go. We will, this is an equal opportunity show. The hedge fund lady can buy a boyfriend.
Ferraris for everyone. Why not? We'll be Oprah.
Everybody that wants them. This Bloom Energy, again, this is another one of these on my list, green thing. Now that it's pretty much assured that the government is going to spend some green bucks on something, now that the Republicans say they'll spend some money. Very, very interesting. Again, the stock that was in the high 40s and everybody was like giddy in February, now making a move up again. So, yeah, I mean, is this, again, you only sell puts if you can stomach the purchase, as Brian alluded to. I have found the easiest way not to blow out is to not leverage a put sale because if you don't have to sell the stock or you don't have to close your put for a terrible price, you have a great chance of making money over time. So, but this is a stock on my radar. I've been looking for ways to do this. I might end up with some kind of risk reversal action on this one. It does have potential, but again, it's not like Ford where it's an actual company that makes money selling cars. This is a company that does green stuff, making fuel cells and stuff like that. But again, not quite seeing the profits yet are there, but again, interesting line in the sand put for sure.
Interesting indeed. That one worked out. Add it to the list, folks, of line in the sand puts that have worked out. And also, let's add to the list your questions because it is time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Welcome to the mail block. You folks have been sending in more well wishes and congratulations ever since the big 1000th episode. We appreciate you all, just like Jace here. Jace says, Congrats on OB1K. I like that. I think someone came up with that in our chat, and that seems like it's kind of just stuck. It sounds cool. I think as someone pointed out, it sounds like a Star Wars droid, and it does. So congrats on OB1K. It's awesome that you guys have been putting out such a great show for so long. I wish I discovered this, and he puts in parentheses, or even knew about podcasts or options, really, back in 2010. Yeah, you and a lot of other people. Podcasts were still very new even back then. The iPhone had only been around for a couple of years. iTunes was still very much a nascent platform. Imagine listening back when we created this thing all the way back in 2007 when we created kind of the first options podcast. Pre-iPhone, you had to have a freaking RSS reader to get it. Super early on the podcast front. So 2010, things were at least a little bit more developed. He says, keep on rocking. Longo is the OG of the options podcast world. Well, thank you for that. I think I do probably qualify in that discussion. We have kind of kicked this whole options podcast ball off, and now getting some new wrinkles to it, which is kind of fun. This coming in live from Luigi. My boy Luigi says, hola. Well, hola, Luigi. Says, I was bummed I couldn't listen live on Monday. Yeah, I think we missed you on there on the big, crazy, spectacular that was OB1K. He says, but I did catch it in the app. Congrats on 1,000. Oh, I'm in with the pro team. Pretty excited. Well, glad to have you on board. You and a lot of other folks are diving into the pro. It's fun. I'm excited too. Everyone's excited. He says, oh, and Jean, our producer Jean is the bomb. Yes, she is. I'm glad you discovered that. Jean is awesome. This whole grand machine called the Options Insider Radio Network would grind to a halt without Jean playing the puppet master behind the scenes, keeping all the things running. I'm just a pretty voice here on the network. She's the puppet master behind the scenes, making sure it all works. Ask anybody on the network. She runs the whole thing. All right, next up. More questions on this stuff from Nick. Nick says, hey, where do I find the info on your subscription offering? Well, you could find it where everyone else is finding it, Nick. TheOptionsInsider.com/shop. You can also go to /store. They both work. And that will get you to Options Insider Plus, Options Insider Pro. More stuff's coming that link down the road. But for now, we use those links. So yeah, so you can find out. If you have questions, hit us up. You can join a lot of your friends like Luigi and everybody else who's diving into the Pro or indeed the Plus. All right, let's go to... Oh, more pro stuff. Milvin says, love the live show, guys. Well, thank you. A longtime fan here of all the OIRN shows. I wanted to be the first pro member and win the sweet insider crate, but it looks like a bunch of people beat me to it during the live show. Glad the response was so strong. You guys deserve the love for putting out so many great shows for so many years. Well, thank you, Milden. Because I am now among the throngs that can call themselves annual pro members. Looking forward to all the great content to come. A question, will there be more sweet swag crates coming in the future? Yeah, if you guys listen live, we gave out a couple of cool options, the first ever Options Insider trading crates, we're calling them. We call them what you will, swag crates, tchotchke crates, cool kind of exclusive stuff we have. And hey, maybe you got Brian on. Maybe we'll throw a playbook in there down the road. You get a free copy of the playbook too. Why not? It's fun to have it to hold in your hot little hands, but there probably will be books in there. There will be all sorts of cool exclusive items from the world of options. We already have 2 have been spoken for, but yeah, you can get, there will be more coming. We said that's part of the fun of going pro is once a month. We are going to have a giveaway to give one of those. Those are kind of bespoke things. So we can't just give them away willy nilly. They take some time to put together, but once a month, that's going to be an added bonus for all of our pro fans out there as they get to win one of those sweet crates out there. Here we go. Let's go to this one really quickly from Steven. Brian, this is for you. You're getting questions even not on your show. This is Steven Shapiro. He says, hi, how are you? I learned so much from the Options Handbook. Well, that's his first mistake, Brian. You can correct him there. He says, question, why was the short/selling iron condors play excluded? I read many enthusiastic articles about them, but was unable to cross-reference and verify them in the Options Handbook. Is shorting the Iron Condor a rookie play, as some articles state, or what? Thanks, Steve. Well, Brian, you can correct him on the name of your book, A, and then B, what do you have to say about why did you omit short/selling Iron Condors, sir?
Well, the name of the book is The Options Playbook, and it wasn't excluded. One of the things about an Iron Condor overall, I don't necessarily know, and I actually debated this when I was writing the book. I just called it an Iron Condor. If you sell the Iron Condor, are you shorting it, or if you are you long it? And I've always kind of never really clarified that. So in other words, are you talking about doing an upside down Iron Condor where you want the market to move? That is not in the options playbook, but the good old fashioned iron condor is definitely in the playbook. And it's, one of the more popular trading strategies out there. Once you get beyond the basics of options, a lot of people like that iron condor. And there's been a lot of derivatives of it, like the good old weirdor. Some people have came up with, but it all started from the iron condor, and the book would not be the book if it didn't have iron condors in it. So I bring that back to everybody out there, Andrew and Mark. What would you, when you place an iron condor trade, are you short the iron condor? Or are you long the iron condor? Bring in a net credit.
So they used to always quote it on the floor. They quoted over what was over, right? So the guts, the closer ports to the at the money are going to be obviously more valuable. So they would quote it around that. So if you're selling those and then buying less expensive wings against them, then I've always viewed it as a short. So Mr. Rock Lobster, you can answer that. And then also I have another question for you right now, live from the live chat coming from Powder Skier. This is hot off the presses. UVXY finally doing their business, finally doing their reverse split. He wants to know what's your take on UVXY after the split. So short or long iron condors, and then what's your take on UVXY, sir?
The near the money is the dominant. So it's a short iron condor, 100%. There's no,
Okay.
It's not even a debate. As far as UVXY, Palookaville. I think it's going to be the biggest sack of trash, just like it is. Like it's so awesomely sack of trashy. The great thing now is there's so much decay built into it. You could actually buy a put and buy an upside call, and you could still make money on potentially both sides. But the put will just evaporate. The put will make so much money, it might even pay for the call too. So great. It's awesome time to trade that product.
We got UVXY 35 and change. VXX was around 36 and change, I believe, at the start of the show. If you had a short one right now, which one are you picking, sir?
UVXY is a little better. Just if, again, short term, I think UVXY is a good short term trade for most people buying puts. So it's right now it is the winner of the Palookaville category right now.
It's a Palookaville pick'em right now with VXX and UVXY, both almost exactly the same level. So you get your pick. Which one do you prefer, listener? Maybe Powder Skier. Which one you trading? Sounds like you're leaning UVXY. Do you agree with the Rock Lobster? Let us know. As we keep on rolling to our final segment, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's tell you what we're watching. Remember, it is a long weekend, so there is no OB on Monday, unfortunately. Uncle Mike's getting a whole week off now. What the? You worked him too hard. 3 hours on Monday. So we'll be back again on this show next Thursday. Of course, a lot of content between now and then on the old network, including the launch of the Pro Q&As. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, Mr. Brian Overby, we'll start with you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week into the weekend, sir?
Well, the stocks that I would be concentrating on a little bit are a lot of the retail stocks. I'm kind of curious what's going to happen with Costco. I've looked into Costco a little bit, and you see the volatility is like you said, coming in just overall. And a lot when you see Best Buy killing it today on earnings, and a lot of the retailers just in general have just had such strong earnings and just not a boatload of moves around those earnings. They've usually used them as an opportunity to kind of sell off. And that goes along with the FANG stocks too. A lot of the FANG stocks killed it, but then they got beaten up. And it's just good to see those FANG stocks back in the fold and actually making some moves to the upside, trying to bring that market back up. So I'm kind of curious now that we're getting to the end of the earnings season, and I see a stock like Costco that's going to be announcing earnings after a big move up or a real solid earnings report from Best Buy. like what will happen with Costco. And I really enjoy trading those stocks when they announce on a Thursday, and then they have 1 day of trading in the option contracts. It always adds an interesting dynamic, opens up a lot of option strategies in general when you got that 1 day option contract on a fairly expensive price stock in Costco. And, it's no Amazon out there, but, $385 stock, and it's basically trading flat today. So I guess that's the one that's been on the radar that I've kind of been looking at and talking a little bit with our clients about.
Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you. Looks like we got the powder skier in the chat agreeing with you. He's also picking up the puts on UVXY right now. So what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week? And again, I guess till next Thursday, because no OB on Monday.
Yeah, I'm going to be in North Carolina next week. But
wait, you're leaving the state of Maine? I didn't know that was possible.
My parents, my mother guilts me and I go. So
I thought they had a little collar on you and it exploded once you crossed the border.
It does in the summertime. So this is very odd for me. I'm like, actually we usually took a family vacation to Cape Cod around Memorial Day. So instead now I'm just going down to visit my folks since they moved to this coast. Anyway, that's, but as far as what I'm looking at is like I said, I kind of switched gears a little bit, going to kind of risk reversally action on some of these stocks that I think, I even added some to my kids to their stock portfolios, added some Ford, adding some GE. I just like, these companies still make money. They're functional and they're trading at like multiples where they'll never grow. So I think the green thing is companies that can figure out a way to make money. And the technology has gotten to a point. So I think it's worthwhile. I don't know if the crazy multiples that some of these stocks get are worth it, but I think some of the old line companies that are kind of getting into it and can make money, I think it's worth looking at. So that's where my eyes fixed. And I'm looking for the 15 handle tomorrow on VIX for the low print in the COVID era. That's what I'm looking for as well. So
15 handle. Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive.
I'm actually hopefully filling a couple of puts as we speak. So what the heck? Might as well.
I, too, am working some offers. I've yet to be filled, but we shall see. If your 15 handle comes to pass, then I will definitely be filled before long. All right. Unfortunately, that music, listeners, means we've already gone beyond our allotted time. If you want more in your ear hole, stay tuned. I'll be back in about 27 minutes holding down the court with the guy who runs all things options over there at CME to talk about all this cool stuff, including a lot more on their CVOL. They've really updated and have some new stuff coming out. So if you're looking for more vol stuff on like the futures and commodities options side of the fence, stay tuned for that in a little bit. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Brian, you did able job, yeoman's work, sir, filling in for Uncle Mike, sir. So if folks are intrigued, they want to check out what you folks have cooking over there at Ally, maybe they want to give you a follow on the old Twitter machine, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, first of all, obviously check out Options Playbook Radio here right on Options Insider. And then you can email me if you'd like at theoptionsguy@invest.ally.com. But more importantly, all the events, I always tweet about them. And my Twitter handle is very simple. It's just my name, @BrianOverby. So please give me a shout out.
At Brian Overby, Overby, all one word. Give him a follow out there. He's always tweeting out stuff, including links to the most recent OPR, but also what they're doing over there at Ally and interesting analysis on the market. So give him a follow over there on the old Twitters. If you're not following at Option Vol, you should be already, because that's where Volman hangs his hat. Mr. Rock Lobster, if folks want to check out what Volman has cooking, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com and also you want to learn to trade for edge and see some real what some tools are to help you find edge in the marketplace. Look at our edge hunter sheets. Our students love them. Come on over, check it out. Optionpit.com. And you know what? I can't wait for the next 1,000 episodes. I mean, I'll be an old man by the time we're there, but what the heck? It should be fun.
We'll bring you in with your walker and your wheelchair from the home.
Roll me in.
You remember when we used to sell them puts in the line in the sand?
Remember that trade, Longo, that we screwed up?
Remember that Men's Warehouse? I don't know why you became Southern all of a sudden, but it's fun nonetheless. So, yes, we are looking forward to the next 1,000. And we're already on our way. Episode 1001. Of course, keep checking out theoptionsinsider.com/shop. Check out Option Insider Plus, Option Insider Pro. A lot of that kicking off next week, so get in there if you haven't already. Should be pretty fun. And before we go, of course, remind you, we'll be back again in 25 minutes. Now I got to get going. And of course, we'll be back again tomorrow for volatility views going into the long weekend. No show on Monday, unfortunately, but we're back again for this show on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.